Hello. By the age of 18, 80% of autistic women have not been diagnosed. So, this video and this series that I'm making here is for you to feel reassured, is for you to feel support, because this little Aspie has created a list of 200 signs that are clearly there and clearly showing that no, you're not weird. No, you're not too much. No, you're not too loud. No, you're not in the way. No, you're not anything. You're just undiagnosed. I want you to look at this list of the 200 signs and make you feel recognized, make you feel support. I want you to look at the list and see that, oh, wow, okay, well, maybe I should go further with this hunch that I might be undiagnosed autistic or ADHD. It's not my list. I have researched a lot. As an Aspie, that is what I do. I research and I create lists and I create coherence in it. So I have taken the content from these books and from the hashtag actually autistic and from the hashtag nothing about us without us and the hashtag autistic women. I have created a list of 200 signs that are very, very easy. And I actually saw once on Insta a post saying that it took me 2 years to get assessed for my autism. And yet, Jessica and Brittany knew in the schoolyard by the first grade. So there are lots of signs. But the thing is that the system is not geared for women. It's geared for boys. I remember back in 2008 when the first time it was suggested to me that I was Asperger's, I was just like, no, I'm not. I'm not a boy sitting in the corner playing with trains. I'm not. I'm successful. I'm really good at my job. I'm really good interdisciplinary. I speak multiple languages, and I'm definitely not Asperger's. And yet, all the signs were there. All I needed was a list that I could go through and see, yep, 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 yep. And this is that list for you. It's obviously not a diagnostic tool. It's not meant for you to get the list and then you see, oh, wow, I have 199 out of 200. I must be autistic. And then lean on that. You can. But I would always suggest for you to get proper diagnosis. And I know that it's not available for everyone. In a lot of countries, the moment you are 18, you can no longer get an assessment and a diagnosis, so it's not possible. And then you would have to do it privately and pay out of pocket and all of that. So I know for a lot of you, it's not possible. Um, Use this list as a guide. I also want to say that a lot of the signs on the list are the same if you are traumatized, if you have PTSD or if you have CPTSD, that you have had some kind of developmental trauma or something has happened in your life. You might have some of the signs on the list because it's the same, but you won't have the entire list. You won't have, the Autie Hair, and you won't have, all of a lot of other things. There's a very clear distinction between being autistic or ADHD and having trauma. There's some overlaps because we have a lot of trauma. We do, obviously. I mean, just the stats with when we're 18, 80% of us has not been diagnosed, which means that we're walking around out in society trying to act normal, trying to, fit in and all of that. And we just don't. We just don't. And that gives you the first thing that happens is that you get that feeling there's something wrong with me. I need to be less me. I need to hide. I need to mask. I need to figure out how I can, fit in somehow. And when people tell a joke and you don't get it, you feel that you must be the stupid one. You must be the one that is flawed because everybody else get it. But hey, we don't get jokes. Um, Also the part about taking things literal is also not understanding sarcasm. There's so many things that makes it really difficult for us to function in the world as neurotypicals they do. And not having a diagnosis is creating a lot of trauma in you. So let's get to it. I have created a list. It's in 13 categories because not everything is the same. I put it into categories. I'm a proper Autie. So I put it into categories and there are 200 things on the list. And I also want to say that obviously I have forgot a lot of stuff, obviously. If you hear me saying something and you remember, oh wow, I also have that, or another thing that I also have is also this, please write it in the comment section, because I would be happy to extend the list so we can make a full compilation. So we can make a series that you can send to your girlfriend that you think is on the spectrum so she can check herself out and then go further. In the comment section or in the description about the video, you will find different tests you can do. You will find all of the studies that I'm referring to. There will be links for those as well. And you will also find the overview of in which video the different topics are being discussed, so you can jump back and forth between the videos. And if somebody want to make timestamps, please do. I will be happy. I'm not doing that. But if somebody want to make timestamps, please do that. And I will take them and put them in the description as well of the video, so we can, as a community, stand together and help one another in the best way. I also want to say that with the Awakening curriculum, you have all the things you need for you to see through all of that suffering that you have in your life. It's simply just going to the first fetter, start by the first one, write an email to Todd on unfetteredmindfulness@gmail.com, and he can add you to we have a hive mind community on Discord, where there's also a section that is for the atypical awakening. So I mean, you're not alone. You're not alone in this. We have a huge community. A lot of people that are on the spectrum are obviously following the things that I do, because I am very autistic in the way that I perceive the world, the way that I see things. And both Todd and I were very, very clear in our directions, which is wonderful for people on the spectrum. We really struggle with things set between the lines. We don't get that. We completely miss that. So with the Awakening curriculum, you have a full curriculum that is helping you through the 10 different ways that we identify in our lives that is creating so much suffering for us. So you have all the tools. All of it is for free. You can join our inquiry meetings. That is for free. There's so much out there to help you with this. But back to this video. If you recognize yourself in this and you see that you also have different things that are not on the list, please write them in the comment section. I will make as many videos as is needed for us to make a full compilation of the list. So let's start. The first one I would like to say is the one that many of you might not actually see as a sign, but it is that you are misdiagnosed. A lot of women that actually are autistic are diagnosed with ADHD. It's like it's more household okay to be ADHD than being autistic. If you have an ADHD diagnosis, look into to see if you're autistic. Not that it really makes much of a difference, but there are differences. And it makes it easier for you to understand you and to see through the things that you think that you should fit into and what you actually fit into. It might also be that you have a compilation of diagnoses like OCD, anxiety, BPD, depression, that you have like a full sheet of different diagnoses where actually you are none of those. You're just autistic. You're just autistic. But it's like that the medical system has such an issue with acknowledging that women can be autistic and that it represents differently in us than it does in males. Hence this list. So the first one is that you have a diagnosis that might not be the correct one. This list might help you to see through that you are simply misdiagnosed. So let's start with the first section, and that is all the childhood signs that are normally missed in girls. And the second point on the list is that you are quiet, shy, and well-behaved. If you look back on your childhood and you look back on how you was as a child, the adults might have seen you as quiet, shy, and well-behaved. And obviously, then you're not going to be recognized as an autist because you fit in. You're sitting in the corner playing in your own little world or reading a book or being super into horses or super into stickers or something like that, where you are on your own and you are not creating any issues or any problems. You are never in any fights. You are never creating problems that might have a teacher see you. You were more sitting in the corner on the outskirts, not really engaging with the other kids, or you were sitting, in the library reading, or you were sitting speaking with the teachers because you were just preferred being with adults instead of the kids. So that having that label as a child that you were quite shy and well behaved might sound great, but all children should have some type of rebel in them. They should have some type of exploring boundaries. And if you didn't do that, it was because you're completely paralyzed with overwhelm of all the things that were happening, completely seeing that I do not fit in here, trying to figure out how do I fit in somehow. And you just didn't. So girls tend not to be noticed because they're observing. They're not participating. They're observing. They're observing how the children play. They're observing how the adults react. They're observing lots of things. And that turns into an overwhelm where you just withdraw into yourself, where you can sit and do your drawings, or you can sit and read a book, or you can play your instrument, or you can do something where you withdraw into yourself. You go for a walk, or you sit and look at a ladybug for 2 hours. You withdraw into yourself because it's so overwhelming that you are observing everything all the time. So if you remember your childhood being spent observing, noticing, trying to figure out what happens between people, how the communication happens, what you can say and what you can't say, trying to figure out because it doesn't come natural to you. And you spent your childhood observing, you're probably on the spectrum. And that leads me to the third one, which is that we spend our childhood going in and out of states. You were either in that observing state and then you would be in a shutdown, or you would go into a meltdown. And in the one where you were deemed as quiet, shy, and well behaved, you probably think, well, that was on me because I had so many meltdowns as a kid. Yeah, yeah. But until you did, and I just want to talk shortly about meltdowns. Now, a meltdown is, I don't experience meltdown, I experience shutdowns, but I know from my Autie friends that a meltdown is when things are compiling so much in you that you simply explode and you can't hold it back. It's like a sneeze. You can't hold it back. And if you have meltdowns, then obviously you might be very clear on that you're on the spectrum, because the autist and ADHD that have meltdowns, they tend to get diagnosed sooner, just like the boys, because they are acting out. They are showing very, very clearly that there is something happening in them that they cannot control. As a girl, however, you would very often have experienced that being chastised. You would very often have experienced that you were told that, you're not acting like a girl, you're not acting like you're supposed to. Where boys, it's more okay that they are acting out and that they are having a meltdown than it is for girls to have a meltdown. So if you're one of the girls that experience meltdowns, you have really experienced how it is to be ostracized, to be held outside of a group because people were thought that you did that on purpose, that was under your will, that you decided to do that, and that is just not how a meltdown works. It's not how it's like holding back a sneeze. It's just not gonna happen. But both the shutdowns and the meltdowns that we experience happens because we're overwhelmed. Our sensory experiences and our experiences of being in the world has been overwhelmed. We can't deal with it anymore. And then we either turn inwards where we shut down, or we turn outwards where we melt down. And if you in any way feel, if you have meltdowns, if you in any way feel that I have not given you any justice in what I just said, please write it in the comment section, because as I said, I haven't got experiences with it myself. I've only experienced from the outside, like everybody else. I know where it comes from. I know how that feels, because I do think that the feeling of a shutdown coming and the feeling of a meltdown coming is the same. It's just the expression that is different. And why we express like we do, it's up to, neurology. So if I have not done you any justice, please write it in the comment section. I would love to be educated on it. I just want to say that meltdowns is never about a drama. And you might have been called a drama queen. That was fucking unfair, because you're not. I also want to talk about the fourth pointer, which is in a shutdown, we tend to go mute. And we can feel that happening before it happens, by that you start to struggle with words, finding the right words. And I remember my entire childhood, when I felt that I would start to go mute, I would use like aphasia. I would use wrong words to describe something, or I would just not know what to say. I would be kind of like, that is another point that is coming in a moment, but I was just having that um quietness because I don't know what words to use. I can't string words together to describe how I feel. I would also start to go numb, that I wouldn't feel anything. I wouldn't know how I felt. And that still happens, that I don't know how I feel. I'm like completely numb. And in 72 hours, I can tell you how I felt. But right now, I don't know. So the fourth pointer is when we go mute. And there are a lot of us out there that are mute. And I hate when it's called selective mutism because there's nothing selective about it. I can't choose that I'm not able to string words together. I can't choose that I don't want to talk. It's not I don't want to talk. I simply cannot talk. I simply cannot find the words. I cannot describe what is going on in me. I have no words to put on what is experiencing. And if I'm pushed to try to speak or try to express myself like I was taught, um, it just pushed me further into the shutdown, which will end up with me just needing even more. And if it is pushed far enough, I go catatonic. And that is where there's just nothing happening. There's nothing going in, nothing going out. It's just a catatonic state where I'm not speaking, I'm not engaging, I'm not there at all. And I had that a lot as a child, simply because there was nobody who knew that I was on the spectrum. It wasn't a thing back then. And the fifth point on the list is that you notice everything. And I just talked about that in the beginning, that you observed, and you still do that. It was a thing that you noticed as a child. I remember that noticing everything, seeing that, adults had affairs with one another. I could see that before anybody else saw it. I noticed everything because there's such an attention and awareness going out there in trying to figure everything out. And it's not something that I'm deciding to do. I just notice everything. And it's why it can be utterly exhausting to be with people because it's not that I want to see everything. I don't want to see that you're lying and she's reacting. And I don't want to see all those patterns. I don't want to see now as an adult as well, where I can see like illnesses and diseases, and I can see, emotional states, and I can see and smell all of that. So, and now I'm aware of that this is, my autistic superpower. So now it's differently, obviously, than what it was when I was a child, because I didn't know all of the input that I got. Now at least I know what it's about. Um, but that noticing everything and seeing everything and observing everything and it's just utterly exhausting. And I remember as a child always being exhausted because I noticed everything, everything. I could tell you how many different cars were parked on a parking lot and I could be asking the afternoon and I would know. Because it's just that we just notice everything. We notice everything. Now, when we are going for a walk and a car is coming towards us, I know exactly where they live because I know where every car belongs to every house. And it's not something that I am deliberately noticing. I'm just observing it. And then it just goes to my brain and gets stuck like Velcro. It just sticks. It's there. And that was you as a child as well. And you might have very early on been taught that you cannot share that. You cannot tell people that this is that you see all these things, and then you just stop sharing about it, but you still notice everything. Number six is that you had really difficulty with understanding intentions of what they did, understand their intention. I still struggle with that. I don't understand intention. I can hear people saying something, and I can hear and feel in my body that I'm missing something, but it's because I'm missing the intention. I don't know what people mean with it, and that's the reading between the lines that is just not happening. I can have a friend and she's going like, and I'm asking, are you okay? I can see something is wrong, and she go, no, I'm fine, I'm fine. A neurotypical would know that she's not fine, you need to ask more. I didn't. For decades, I didn't. I would go like, okay. And then just going on to talking about myself, which would or my experience or something I experienced, because I would try to engage and make her, not be in that weird state that I don't know what that is, but we can get it back to something that I know and that is talking about me or something that I'm interested in, or something I have done. And then because I've been taught that, share what you experience, and then you kind of like meet the other person, and it's just not how it's perceived. So that difficulty in reading thoughts and intentions from other people, if it's not stated clearly, it's number 6. And number 7 is that Jekyll Hyde thing that is happening with you, because you're observing, 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 and then you engage because now you think, oh, I'm nailing it. I know exactly how to speak to Jessica and Brittany. I know exactly what to do. I've seen how they do. And so now I'm going to do exactly what they do. And then it's going to be exactly the same, only to absolutely backfire. Um, and then you withdraw into yourself again and going back to the observing state where you try to observe and make sense of what is happening until next time when you can, oh, I got it. I'm nailing it. I know exactly what to do, trying to engage. And then the same thing happens. So that Jekyll Hyde thing that is happening where it's going, trying to engage and then withdrawing and trying to figure out what did I do wrong? What happened? And gather your troops and finding out, so what to do now and understand and engage. It's like everybody was given a cheat sheet to life and you never got the memo. You know, everybody knows how to function in the world and you do not. You do not know what all of those hidden signs between the lines are meaning. So you don't know it. You never got that memo. Number 8 is that you really, as a kid, struggle with group play. You struggle with group work. When one of the worst things in my school was that there was so much socialization, which is brilliant and wonderful. And I had a really good childhood because of that, because I was, taught how to do it. But that constant, I remember always when I was like, and we do this in groups, and I was thinking, oh no, because I would just prefer to do this on my own, because I would do it perfectly. I would research, I would do everything perfectly, and it would be done the way that I would like it to be done, not sitting and hearing, people's debates and thoughts about it, leading it back to the point where, yeah, we're going to do it the way that I want to do it anyway. So groups was always difficult, and was not only in classes, it was also in play, in group play, understanding things happening. I remember I lived close to a little forest where there was a little stream, and with the other kids living there in the area, we would play houses, so we would build houses, and then we would interact with one another. I would build the house. That would be it. The interaction never worked much. I couldn't really engage the same way as the other kids did. I could sit in my house, observe, and a house would be like stones around, and that would be my house. And I could make my house really nice the way that I wanted it, and then it would be evening and we would go home, and the others, they had played with one another and bought things, and then these leaves are tennis, and these leaves are 20s, and these are coins, and they would go and collect, so they would have a lot of money and buy with one another and interact and engage that way. And I would be in my house because I did not know the rules to do that. I then found out that I could just, attach myself to one of them and do what she did, and then I would be the same. Oh, collecting those. Okay, now we're going by. Oh, then we're going by bread. Okay, so I would just copy what the others were doing because I had no idea how to do that on my own or engage on my own. Mostly, I would just sit in my own little house. So it's that one, observing instead of engaging in play. And number 9 is parallel play. Oh my goodness, I love parallel play. Parallel play is when you sit in your own little bubble and the others. I remember with my sister that we would draw. We always loved to draw. So I would be sitting and drawing, and she would be sitting next to me drawing. And it would be so nice, that feeling of yeah, feeling of connectedness with another person happens best when I parallel play. And I still do that today. That Todd, he can be sitting and composing or writing or something like that. And I will be sitting with my plants, with all my plant stuff on the floor and doing all my plants. And that is parallel play. That is a wonderful, wonderful way to engage and be together with other people. That's by parallel play, where we don't talk, we don't engage, but it's wonderful sitting and doing my own little thing in my own little bubble, and I can feel that he's there and he's doing his own little thing, and it's just wonderful. It gives such a feeling of unity and being together with another person to experience parallel play. And obviously, I had that a lot in my school years. I remember I had a really, really good friend that he's probably on the spectrum as well. I don't know, but we would have a lot of parallel play where we would play together in recess all the time, but we never really spoke. It was more like me doing my thing, him doing his thing, and we then did it together. I remember also I went to a really good school where there was like no forest and ocean and stuff, and we would be going trips at the age of like 9, 10, something like that, down to the ocean, complete quiet. Look at the ocean, looking at stones, collecting stones, and going back, complete quiet. Absolutely wonderful. Some of the most fondest memories I have of my childhood was parallel play with another person. Another thing that you had is number 10, where it's that imaginary life or imaginary play that you engage deeply. It could be with a fictional character, a person that you read about in a book, and you engage deeply in it. I remember reading Jane Austen when I was 12, 11, 12, something like that. And oh my God, I loved it. I was completely engaged in those female characters that isn't Jane Austen. That I would start to dress with with long dresses and hats, and because it was like almost being there, and I would go for walks and I would in the long dresses and feel that I would be back, and I was completely felt like one of her characters that I really identified with. And then when I got older, it was TNG, and yeah, I'm a Trekkie, and completely engaging and feeling connected with the characters on TNG, where it's just like one of those. I feel I know them as if they're real, as if they're real people, as if they're real um, worlds that I have engaged in by watching or reading the book. So engaged in that way. And if you're on the spectrum, you had imaginary friends, either like I just explained, or like that you saw a friend with you, that you saw another person. I have always seen three people that was with me all the time, in my childhood years, not as an adult, but as a child, where it was like three people that was always there protecting me, being with me, making sure that I was okay, and I saw them. It's not just I know that with the adult mind and neurotypical blah 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 and all of that is said that that was imagination and that was hallucination and that was lots of things, and it's just like, no, that was real. Um, so having that imaginary life and having that imaginary friends and having that whole imaginary becoming as real as the rest of the world. Also, like reading a book, I loved reading as a kid, and reading a book and being so engaged in that world that when I was looking up, it was just like, oh yeah, that's like two parallel worlds existing on par with one another. It was not a world in the book and a world here. This was the book and this is the real world. No, both are equally real. Both are equally the same. There is no difference at all. And another thing with teachers and adults is that either you were teacher's pet or you were the trouble one, creating issues. That you had teachers that you really liked to engage with and talk with and related to. I had multiple teachers that were really, really good for me because I could speak with them on the level that I preferred speaking. I never really could speak children's language, if that makes sense. I never had the vocabulary of that. It was always like, yeah, communicating on a different level with the adults, with the teachers. I preferred being with them than being with my peers. And either you fit in with that and you were the pet, or you were the trouble one, the one that always created issues. And I experienced both. I in the younger years in school, I didn't really understand the idea of just sitting passively. So I would, just get up and leave, go to the ocean instead. I thought that was much better idea. And I remember my dad, he got a note in we had like a notebook that was communication between the school and the class, and the first note from the teacher in the book is the teacher telling my dad if he please could tell me to not leave class but stay in class and listen to what is said. I just thought it was tedious and boring, in the first grade, second grade. I didn't find it interesting at all. I wasn't stimulated at all. It needed to be on a different level. So it was in the older years that I really, really enjoyed school. And that's also another thing where you might have been called the little professor. That is that info dumping, that there's something that you're really, really interested in, and then you would just info dump, like I talk about with the books that I was really into. I would completely info dump. Then I got into David Bowie and I knew everything about David Bowie. And it's like, if you wanted to know anything about him, you could ask me. And even if you didn't ask me, I would be happy to tell you. And there's no pause button on that monologue that is happening. It's absolutely info dumping. And it's the same with everything that I do. I just chose a niche in my life where I could research and be really, really good at. And then I can just info dump. And YouTube is a wonderful medium for that. You can find so many authors out there that are sitting and info dumping, which is wonderful. But that you experienced as a child as well, that you were info dump on people. You might have been told that you need to ask the other kids if they still want to listen to you, because I wouldn't understand that when they got up and left because they had had enough of whatever I was interested in and really engaged in. I would just get up and walk with them I would just keep talking and telling and explaining. And even if people, it would subtle cues that I now see was subtle cues, I wouldn't pick up on it. I wouldn't understand that they were not interested in hearing any more about whatever I was into. I collected stickers and I collected sugar bags. My uncle, he was a pilot, so he would travel to different countries and he would collect sugar packs for me. So I would collect those sugar packs and have them in my albums, and I would share about them, talk about them, or Jane Austen, or whatever I was into. I was into dogs at some point, and I would absolutely info dump about dogs on people. Um, and it wasn't until they would say, "I'm not interested in hearing any more about, the German Shepherd. I'm not interested." Then I would understand, oh, okay, I would be puzzled about why they're not interested in hearing about the German Shepherd, because it's super, super interesting. You would info dump and you would be called the little professor. And number 13 is one I already in between talked about, that you preferred adults. You preferred being with adults instead of being with your peers, because the peers were confusing and the adults had communication with you on a level that was interesting. And that sitting and observing, I remember we had the library, and there was like where the teachers, they were having lunch, was in the same big room as the library, and I would sit and just listening into what they talked about, or would be sitting and reading and just hear their hum of speaking in the background. And just preferring adults, preferring being with adults instead of being with peers, because peers were confusing, absolutely confusing. Another thing that I just would like to clear out for you, that you might have thought that and were told that you tattled a lot, that you told on your friends that they did something wrong, and then you went to a teacher and told about it. You might have been told that you tattled, but I would like for you to see that with a different light, see that in a different way, that we have this feeling of fairness. If something is wrong, we will yell, we will make aware of it. We will not just see something slide because it's wrong. If there are rules, then you obey to those rules, you follow the rules. If you have an opinion about the rules being stupid, then you should take it up with the appropriate authorities and do something about it. Until then, you're following the rules. And that is why it's rare that you see autists being criminals because we are following the rules. If it says this is a 20 zone, I will drive 20 because there are signs saying 20. I will be between 18, 19, 20. I will not by myself deem that this is silly, so I'm going to go 30, 40, or 50. That will not happen with an Aussie. We are following the rules. And in school, that would be that you saw things that was unfair. You saw things that was not right, and you would tell. You would make aware. You would put yourself in the situation, in the middle, going, "That's not fair. You can't speak to her like that. You shouldn't talk to her," because that fairness gene just kicks in, and you will have got a label of being someone that you actually weren't. It was just because the fairness gene was kicking in, and you would have to stand up for the weak ones. You would have to stand up for the rules. You would have to make aware that this is how it's supposed to be. And then there's the gifted but awkward. Being an advanced reader, I read the school library. By the time I left school, I had read the library. Um, and I remember going into town and being in the library, and that was one of the best things, ever. And I would, if it was a weekend, I would usually borrow 4 books because I read a book a day. So I would just plow through it. Like in the morning when I woke up, before anyone else, I would lie and read half of the book. And then before falling asleep, I'll read the other half of the book. So, and I'm a very quick reader, which is another thing that authors usually are very quick readers. But it's just easy to, yeah, to read. And it was easy for me to read and write at a very early age. I could see the same with my children, that both of them are the same. My granddaughter the same. So that is that very, yeah, gifted but awkward is what it normally is. It's also that you might have been really good at math at a very early age before you were supposed to understand equations. You understood equations. It could be that you were really good with geography before you even, knew anything. I remember the first time I saw an atlas. I thought it was magnificent, and I love geography. So I'm really into reading atlas and into, yeah, the history about the different countries and the borders between countries. I'm really interested in that. I was interested in that way before, I should be interested in stuff like that. So yeah, gifted but awkward. And then there's the collections. Oh God, I love collect, and we love collection. We love collecting things and arranging things and rearranging things. And for example, I like books, and I would have my books, and I still do that I have them color coordinated, because if you think of a book, you normally see the book for you and I, unless you have a Fantasia, you normally see the book for you and I, and therefore you can see the color of the book, and then it's easier to just go to the bookshelf with all the blue books, and then it would be there. I would then rearrange my books so it would be from about author, or I would rearrange it again, and then it would be about topic, or I would rearrange it again. And remember doing that at the library so well, because that collection and rearranging, having stones, washing the stones and having them in sequence, and then rearranging them and having them in colors. And I collected stickers. And having them in albums. I would take phone books. Remember back when we had phone books, and would fold the pages, and then would put little, notes on it. So this section is about animals, and this section is about, flowers, and then I would rearrange it, and then it would be the ones with glitter and the ones without glitter, and do the same with my sugars. Then it would be by color, then it would rearrange it, and then it would be by size, and rearrange it, then it would be by country, and then it would be, so that collecting things and rearranging is wonderful. And I think it's one of the things that I still enjoy with plants, that collection and taking care of and changing the soil, and getting the right fertilizer, and and then rearranging and getting orchid bark and all of that. So there's something about that collection and rearranging that is just really, really satisfying, really enjoyable. Also, when going into a supermarket, is maybe something I should put on the list as well. So this is in a bracket. Going into a supermarket and putting things in order. Yeah. Like if there's like a big pile in a, one of those containers, and all of it is just lying, then starting to rearrange it. So you have like the tomato soups there, and the pumpkin soups there, and you start to, and you're not even working there, but it's just something that happens. So if you standing For example, we can be standing in a supermarket and talk about something, and I can see on the shelf that one of the things I pushed a bit back. I pull it out and arrange them so they are in line. There's just that something really, really wonderful with with the collection and rearranging of things. Yeah. Number 17 is that you were highly emotional sensitive, that you very easily picked up on other people's mood. You might not have understood that you were picking up on other people's mood, but you could feel it in your body that something changed. Um, I have always been very sensitive to TV and news. I don't watch the news. I can't watch anything like crime or horror or anything like that because it really, really affects me. Um, it is as if that what is happening is in me, that is happening in me, that I am in the war torn zone, or I am in the famine area, or if I watch anything with cruelty, a TV series where people are lying or cruel to one another, it is as if it's happening here. I'm really, really sensitive to what is going on out there because I can feel all of it in my body. I can feel all of it as if it's to me, which is also when I see animals, suffering or being out there and the owner is yanking the chain or kicking a dog or reacting in some way. I feel it in me as if it happened to me. I feel it in my body. So it's not the thoughts about it, it's the feeling, the it's a visceral sensation in the body where it feels like that is me. That is happening to me. It's happening to my body. It's me, it's my psyche that is experiencing as if it is, which makes it even more difficult to be out and about because I remember as a kid picking up, we would just go to supermarkets and shop like a family does, and I would pick up on everybody there. I would feel all of their feelings, I would feel all of their emotions, and I couldn't filter in what was me and what was them. It would be absolutely overwhelmed of sensations in my body. I still have that when we're out, and I get super, super exhausted when we're out and about, or when I'm in an airplane or in a big room with lots of people. It's also why I prefer not doing anything in person because I will pick up on you right away. I will know everything about you, and if you touch my skin, if I touch your skin, like shaking your hand or giving a hug, I know everything about you, and there's just so many things I don't want to know about other people. There's so many things that I just don't want to feel in my body as if it's me, because that filter that neurotypical people have between me and you, that there's like I can treat you like shit and it makes no difference to me. That that is not possible. That is just not possible because I feel your pain as if it's mine. Whatever is happening to other people, whatever you're going through, if I touch your skin, I feel that as if it's me, as if I am the one experiencing it, which makes it very um yeah, difficult to be with other people. And I remember as a kid being absolutely overwhelmed by that all the time. On the other hand, it's also that if I'm then, I had a really good friend, Sine, who was my best friend, and I could kind of like, by touching her hand, I would kind of like get how she felt. And that could override how I felt in the moment. And I do the same with Todd now, that whenever we are out, just by touching him, it's kind of like it's contagious how he feels. It's contagious in me, and that can completely override anything that I have picked up about, somebody being angry at a clerk in the store. I can just hold his hand, and then it's kind of like it's the feeling is kind of like bleeding in to me, so I get that feeling instead of the feeling from over there. So that being emotional sensitive and picking up on everything, and it's also something I'm going to talk about later when I talk about our superpowers. That obviously, if you understand this and if you become clear on you being on the spectrum, this is also a superpower because you know so much about other people that you can actually help them in different ways. And that's why a lot of autists are being called psychic. We're not, though. We're just very, very sensitive. We really pick up on everything. We can see, yeah, see things that are not present very, very clearly. But I will get to that when I talk about the superpowers. And that leads me to 18, which is that chronic persisting fear, that chronic persisting anxiety that is there all the time. Because you pick up on so many things, there is that constant overwhelm all the time. So there was just that persistent fear or persistent anxiety by school, by schoolwork, by work, by and as an adult, by parenthood, by everything. There was that persistent anxiety all the time that is there under the surface all the time. And that is why a lot of autistic women have been diagnosed with anxiety, where you don't really have that. You're just overwhelmed. The way that anxiety is perceived in you is different than it is neurotypical people when we talk about anxiety. It's just that complete overwhelm, that alertness that is there all the time that just puts you away from this situation right now and into the future where anxiety is happening. And the last three things are funny things. The one thing I remember as a kid was I always slept with one arm in the air, and I have later found out that that is something that autistic kids do. One of the things you can see as an autistic kid that they're autistic is that they're shaking their heads. I'm not doing that now because I get super dizzy, but children are doing that. And that's a really good way of seeing that a child is autistic, that they're shaking their heads because it's kind of like a stem, and then they get that dizziness that is like really fun to experience. Another thing is that they sleep with an arm in the air. So like I remember and it's like when I do it now, I can feel like I'm sleeping on the side and then my arm is up in the air and I can feel that it's like my shoulder is kind of like clicking in, and then I'm lying that like that, falling asleep. Um, I think my arm is coming down when I'm sleeping. Obviously, it must be, but I just remember that was how I could fall asleep. I could not fall asleep if my arm was not up in the air. Another thing as a kid was that I was constantly sucking on my hair. My stepmother, she always wanted to cut my hair off because I had it in my mouth all the time. It was just a way of stimming, just like we do things with our fingers where we're stimming. Fiddling with tassels or fiddling with, I usually have tassels or something on my clothes that I can fiddle with to stim with. It would be nibbling on a sleeve, fiddling with wristbands, so that constant engaging in stimming behaviors that are not shaking your hands and not doing anything that is outwardly weird, but sucking on your hair, nibbling on a sleeve, something like that is very typical for autistic girls to do. And it's one of the ways that you can recognize autistic girls in a schoolyard, that they will be standing outside of the group. I mean, in all group photos I have, all photos I have of my childhood, I'm standing outside of the group, sucking on my hair. So that you can recognize autistic girls, and that's what I said earlier with, Brittany and Jessica and you in the playground before the first grade, because we're standing in on the outskirts and observing what is happening while we are sucking our hair, nibbling on a sleeve. Yeah. And then there's the last point in this section, and that's the autistic joy, that we have this bubbly explosion, just like we can have, meltdowns where everything just explodes. We can have the same with excitement. And I still have that. I had a lot of years where I really put a lid on it and did not express when I was happy. But the autistic joy is when there's just so much excitement happening in the body that you cannot keep it in, that you just need to flap your arms or stamp your feet or squeal or jump up and down or something like that. I still do that on on our wedding, on the wedding video where when Todd and I got married, when we were married, I was just squealing and jumping up and down because it's that excitement that is just too much to have in the body. I can't contain it in my body. It's just too much to have in this little body. It needs to be expressed somehow. And I had that as a kid, and then when I became a teenager, I put a lid on it because I didn't want to seem infantile or seem like girlish or childish or in any way, so I put a lid on it. And then when I found out I was autistic, I took the lid off, and now I just experience autistic joy. Now I would like to talk about section 2, all the physical signs and appearances, because there are things that you can see from afar that this is an autistic woman or autistic girl. First of all, the T-Rex arm. I remember as a kid and as a teenager always being told hands down, put your hands down, put your hands down, because I was told it was arrogant standing with a T-Rex arm, but it is how I relax. And I can feel now after I got my diagnosis and I'm more relaxed about it, and I talk about very openly about my T-Rex arm. It's something that relaxes me, having just like sleeping with the arm in the air. Um, Having the T-Rex arm is just relaxing. That it's a way for me to find calm in my body with the T-Rex arm. It's just there. Another thing that I would like to talk about and address is that when you were young, you didn't have a personal identity. You didn't know who you were, and it could be that, and that was like way into my adults and probably still is. I'm just not really that engaged or paying attention to it anymore. But it's that there's not a personal identity. That one day you can dress up like business with like crispy white shirt, and the next day you're absolutely boho with flower power and bracelets and big earrings and all of that. That lack of identity, that lack of knowing who you are and what you want. And I also think it's one of the reasons why when we find some clothes that is really comfortable to wear, we normally buy multiple of that. Like I have a black dress that is super, super soft. So when I tried that on in the dressing room, I just knew, okay, this is gonna sit on my body forever. So I bought four because I just know that this is really comfortable and this I really enjoy wearing. So I wear that. Um, but it's not tied into an identity because if I look at the style of that black dress, it doesn't really fit any of my styles, if I can say it like that. It was just really comfy having on. So therefore I bought that. But that lack of, particularly in childhood and when you were young, um, that lack of identity, that lack of knowing who you are. So one day you would look like a boy, and another day you would be very, very girlish in how you're dressed. And then you would be, I had like pink overalls that I was wearing that I really enjoyed, and then I would be like super chic the next day. That there's no fixed way of being because there's no fixed identity. And when we start to work with the feathers and we start to work with dissolving identity, this is one of the things that when you really allow yourself to be autistic or be ADHD, that this is one of the things that are very easy for you because it was never there to begin with. That there was not like that fixed personality or fixed way of being. And I'm not talking about the rigid routines and all of that. We will get to that. I'm talking about that something that you identify with, that, oh yeah, this ring really fits who I am. Ugh, no idea what that is because it was never there. It was something that was created later. It was not there to begin with. It's also a way where it was really difficult to define yourself outside of other people's influence. So you would be influenced by some people to be in a certain way, then you would be influenced by a book to be in another way, influenced by a movie to be in some way. There would be like that um, influenced by others. There wouldn't be a solid, this is who I am, or this is how I look, or this is what I think, or this is my opinion. There would be like everything is up in the air. Yeah, that could be anarchist. Yeah, I could be an anarchist, conservative. Yeah, I actually see myself like that. That there's like that complete not identifying with anything, that it was about who you surrounded yourself with that would shape who you became. And when you then landed on something, like the other part of that is also that you look very quirky. That when you are just, left on your own demises, you would dress up. Like I said, I would walk around in like 1700 dresses happily. And I remember once taking the bus in one of those dresses and a hat with a veil. Um, and the bus driver asked me, is there like a carnival going on? I was like, no. I was completely offended. Where I understand why he asked that. But that being completely quirky in your look, I remember painting my nails with different every single nail in a different color, and they would sit and paint like flowers or flags or something on my nails. And everybody would think that was weird. And then I had a period where I grew my pinky nail to be as long as possible, and like just doing weird and quirky stuff that just doesn't fit in with anybody. And if you ask, why do you do that? You wouldn't know. I like it. There was no reason to it. And when you get the diagnosis, it's just one of those things that is making your life so much easier, that you can just be your quirky self and it's completely fine. So that eccentric personality, that quirky personality where you're standing out from the crowd, is also very, very autistic ADHD. And then let's talk about how we dress today. You are probably right now dressed in something super, super comfy. You have soft fabrics. You don't have any polyester. You don't have any wool. You don't have anything like that. That is super uncomfortable to wear. It's very, very comfy. You're wearing either super soft, big clothes, or you're wearing very, very tight clothes that is kind of like constricting and making you feel where you are, because both are equally wonderful. You might have colorful clothes on in all the rainbow's colors. You might have headphones, blue glasses, comfortable shoes that are either, barefoot or Crocs. So fluffy socks. Not really concerned with how the colors, if they clash or if they fit, but where it's just what is really, really comfortable. I bet that is how you look right now. So when you're out and about and you see somebody in sweats and a rainbow unicorn hoodie and blue hair, headphones, blue glasses, Crocs and fluffy socks, they're probably on the spectrum. They're probably on the spectrum. And could we talk a moment about Autie Hair? Now, Autie Hair is where your hair, my hair is long because I don't like to go to the hairdressers. That's the reason. It's long because I don't like anybody touching my hair. I don't like going to the hairdressers. I don't like the grooming. I don't like the bobbing. I don't like the things you put in your hair that makes it sticky, and I don't like any of that. So just leaving it, perfect. Perfect, perfect. So I have long hair. If and the times I have had cut my hair, it curls up. So it's like here. And that is the typical Autie hair. You can very often recognize autists and ADHD on their hair because we just have a certain type of hair. And I know this is not for everyone. You might sit with your very nice soft bob that looks absolutely perfect, and you're also on the spectrum. I'm not saying anything about you at all. I love you. It's completely fine. But I just want to give a shout out for all the girls out there with Autie hair that has tried everything to make it look nice, straightening or curling it or making it look nice, and yet it goes like dude somehow at some time where it just has its own will. I can see on my hair if Todd can see on my hair if I'm tired, because it just reacts as if it's like, has a life on its own, which I think it is. And that's the Autie hair. And it brings me to the hate haircuts part. That going to the hairdressers and having a stranger touching my hair for 4 hours straight, having somebody touching, and while they're talking about small stuff, small talking about different things, and there's music in the background, and there's all the smells of coffee and perfume and all of the hair products, and it's just a sensory overload. Sometimes obviously I go to the hairdressers to have cut the ends of it, and I always ask, when is there the least amount of people there? And if there's nobody else, or if there's just a few people, I ask, can we turn the music off? Can we, so I try to make it as tolerable for me to be there. If I can avoid having my hair washed by a stranger, that is wonderful, and I would prefer that. So going to the hairdressers is just a sensory overload, and you need like a layer cake and a holiday named after you have been to the hairdressers, because it was that complicated. And that's another thing, that we have this low grooming tendency, that we're very, very low upkeep. Hair care can feel tedious. The taking things off your face with one product and putting on another product, and then you rinse off with another product, and all that is just it's too complicated, too tedious, can't be bothered. Water in my face, sorted. Bit of oil, fine. And that's it. And that's all I do. So the least amount of care that is like adding onto it, but I'm not talking about not self-care, because we can be very bad at self-care, but once you start to learn self-care and prioritize self-care, that's another thing. But it's not all the product things that you need to put on your face, on your hair and your feet and your nails and all of that. It's just very, very low grooming upkeep that we have. And I also want to talk about that a lot of us have a very androgynous look, that we are not really in one category. In general, the majority of non-binary and trans are on the spectrum already, and that just means that we don't really identify much with a gender. Yes, I know I'm a woman, and yeah, I love dressing and dressing up by that, but it's not because I'm a woman. I just prefer that. I could be a man and prefer walking in dresses, and then I would do that. There's just that, um, not really that focused on gender norms and gender roles and fitting into a little neat box. Not many of us do that. And if you are an Autie woman, you have a lot of androgynous traits that is normally deemed to be men or male. I'm really good. I don't like it, but I can figure out, to change a lamp and cut the wires and do all that. I can take the motor out of a car and change the tires and all of that normal things that are deemed like that is what a man should do. I can do that. Obviously, I'm capable and able. I just do that. Um, and that bleeds into your entire personality, that you are more in the middle than you are in either side. And then we have the unusual gait. Just like we have the Autie hair, we also have the Autie walk. That there's a way that we walk that is very bouncy. You can normally see in a distance. The more you become aware of this, the more you can see in a distance that is an Autie, that is an Autie, because you can just spot it from behind. I just want to say, when I say Autie, I also mean ADHD. I'm not trying to exclude anyone here. I also mean ADHD. So if you are ADHD and you don't feel that I meet you by saying Autie all the time, it's just a phrase. Please don't read anything into it. When there is something that is specifically ADHD, I will make aware that this is specifically. Otherwise, I all see us in the same boat. We all have the same neurodivergent way that our um, brain is built, which is just different. So I apologize if I have offended you in any way by saying Autie instead of saying autistic and ADHD. I mean both. But we have that unusual gait. We have that weird walk. You can see in a distance that this is somebody on the spectrum that is walking there. It's either bouncy. You might have been a toe walker as a kid. It's very bouncy the way that we walk, or it's very like sway the way that we walk. There's like a certain way of moving the body when we walk that is very specific for us. And then we avoid makeup. I don't really know how my makeup looks right now. I'm trying to look representable by putting makeup on, but I mean, give me 30 minutes and I look like a panda. It's just there's something about makeup, and I can go a full day without looking in a mirror at all because it's just not, you know, of interest. I'm not thinking of it at all. So putting makeup on, it should be something that you put on in the morning and then, it's worn off by the end of the day. But very often, if I put makeup on, it's everywhere but where I started by putting it on. I don't know what is happening to us, but I look like a panda in no time. And the last thing about the way the traits that we have is that we look younger than what we actually are. And this is a funny one because as a kid, you looked older, and as an adult, you look younger. When you were a kid, you preferred speaking with the adults, and now when you're an adult, you prefer speaking with teenagers or kids, and where you feel more, it's kind of like we are in the middle all the time, and we don't really look our age. We look younger than than what we actually are. It's difficult to see on an autist ADHD what age they have, because we simply don't look our age. And I can see now that this is taking longer than I thought it would. I'm going to write the different sections in the description of the video. I'm going to make more videos. There will be 200 in total that I hope you recognize yourself in. And if you recognize yourself in this, or if there's something that I haven't mentioned yet in the category that we had talked about, please write it in the comment section. Make sure that you subscribe and that you like this video. Make sure that you share this video with other people on the spectrum so they can recognize themselves. And then let's live this together. Let's support one another in our experience. Let's see if we can make other people more aware of the way that we perceive the world, and the way that we are in the world is just different than the neurotypical way. It's not wrong or in any way not like it should be. It's just different because nobody is the same. Okay, that was a long one. I hope you're gonna check in for the second video for part 2 and hope to see you there. Thank you.